Hello, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Smoko Podcast. My name is Alexis Armstrong, your host. Nice to meet you. The Smoko Podcast is a place to celebrate and highlight women, trans women, and non-binary folk working within STEM and trade occupations. So please tune in, take a break, join us. We are on Smoko. Today, we are extremely lucky to be joined by the lovely lady herself, my salty sea life, Larkin Bohn, who has a sailor of over 12 years of experience. She has worked and sailed all around the world. She has worked on previous ocean research vessels, such as the RV Pelican and also the DSSV Pressure Drop. She's going to kind of talk about her experience working at sea, traveling around, working as a mate, working her way up the house pipe, all things science research and ocean research. And we're going to also speak about her newest transition into something really exciting, into being a videographer and science communicator and sailing aboard vessels as a science communicator. So Larkin, thank you so much for coming onto the show. I am so excited to chat all things maritime industry, life at sea, being a sailor. I can't wait.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm so excited to spread the good word about life at sea and women in STEM and just all the possibilities for the future.
Being a sailor myself, or now a retired sailor, I love talking about life at sea. And maybe that's where we start, is starting from the very beginning, is someone like you that is from landlocked Louisville and
Yes.
growing up in a landlocked state, how you ended
Yeah.
up becoming a sailor. What drew you to becoming a sailor, and how did you realize when you first started working maybe for Norwegian cruise lines that you were like, a sailor's life is a life for me? How did that happen?
I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, but I always liked big cities and the idea of traveling and things. So I moved to Chicago, and I was living in Chicago at the time when I was trying to plan like a vacation for my mom and me. I was trying to get us into Hawaii, right? I was thinking, I want to see as many islands as possible and show her as many islands as possible. So I was looking at cruise lines on there, and I go on Norwegian cruise lines, and in the corner, there's a little button that's saying now hiring. I clicked it, and 2 weeks from that date was an open house in Chicago, like just a few minutes from my house.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I thought, this is kismet. There's moments in your life.
Yeah.
Where this is a moment. So I'm supposed to do this thing. Yes, exactly. I knew. So I got my resume together. I went to the open house, got the job. Before I knew it, I'm whisked away off to Hawaii. I love ship life right away. I knew this was for me. I'm meeting people from all over the world. I'm in a different port every day. I'm learning new things every day, every hour even. I loved it. However, I was in the jewelry store. I'm a really hands-on person. I like being outdoors. Sitting behind a glass case is just
Wasn't
not my jam. No, not my jam. But I saw these sailors walking. I would see like the deckhands walking by with all these tools, or they were driving the little boats, taking the guests to and from the shoreline. They were up in the wheelhouse with the captain. They were doing all the cool stuff. They're out there like doing the thing on the open sea. And it was something that before that had never even been on my radar. But when I started talking to them, I realized that this life is actually possible for me. I've already got a job on the boat. So what's the difference? I can do this. So I started networking with the different deckhands and captains and mates, and they were all very generous with their knowledge. And I ended up getting a job with a company. So because I didn't go to an academy, I'm working my way up the house pipe, I didn't have any deckhand experience. But that's where you start as an unlicensed deckhand. My first task was to find a job that would hire an unlicensed. That's one of those catch-22s where you can't get that first job unless you have a little bit of experience. Can't get the experience on the first job. So I was lucky enough to come across a company called Uncruise, and they hire unlicensed deckhands. They gave your girl a shot, and the rest is history. Once I stepped on board as a deckhand and started working with those tools and learning how the skiffs run it, like learning about navigation, all of these fascinating things, it was like a dream life. I finally had that adventure that I've been seeking all these years. So that was beautiful. That's how I ended up on boats. And it's just progressed from there. From the cruise ships, my heart has always been in science and wanting to be on the science vessels. And so like eventually worked my way up and ended up on one of those research vessels.
Oh, it's such a beautiful story. And I love kind of moments like that you think are fated, that they just happen and that you're like, this was like really meant to be. I love that kind of moment that everything aligned like a domino, that you were like, this is made for me. You mentioned a term that I think if someone's maybe not in maritime, I understand, and that's the hawse pipe. And I was wondering if you could kind of talk to that, because I know that there's two ways that you can get into maritime. And like you said, that classic kind of catch-22 of how do you present to the system? You either go into a maritime academy or you work your way up the hawse pipe. What is the hawse pipe? And could you speak to that experience? What was the most fulfilling part of it? What was the most challenging? How did that work?
Absolutely. I knew that there was two different ways. There's the academy and there's a hawse pipe. The academy, while appealing, I was ready to work. I wasn't in the mindset of, okay, I want to go back to school for a few years. I want to get out there on the water. I've had a taste of the good stuff and I want to keep this going, you know? The house pipe is the pipe that the anchor chain comes out of. And so you're basically working your way up the chain of command. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's a cute little metaphor.
So, we're working my way up the house pipe. Starting out as an unlicensed deckhand, what I found really rewarding was working and learning at the same time while getting paid in these extremely beautiful environments. There is no better classroom than Southeast Alaska by the glaciers. I would do mundane tasks as an unlicensed deckhand, scrubbing the deck with a big smile on my face. And the guests are walking by like, why do you look so excited? Why do you look so happy? You're just scrubbing the deck. And I said, I don't know if you turned around, but there's a glacier over there. And I'm getting paid right now. So
it's pretty gorgeous for me. This is it. Yeah.
That was wonderful. One of the challenges I would say working my way up the house pipe was, and this is just a challenge being a female in this industry. At the very beginning, I didn't really have a mentor. It was a little uncomfortable at first, but luckily there was a wonderful deckhand named Sheena Floyd who came on board a few weeks after I did, and she was my deck partner. She took me under her wing and made me feel very comfortable about asking questions. It's a very powerful thing to see a woman in a role that you want to be in and to give you that helping hand when you need it. That was one of the most rewarding things. The challenging to most rewarding thing.
It is inspiring. And it is so funny because you don't really know that's a big chunk that's missing to this kind of like magic recipe until you have a mentor, until you see representation, and you see another woman in that position or where you would aspire to get to. And then you're like, oh, this is actually extremely powerful. And I didn't know that I needed this. I didn't know that this was missing. Larkin, I have a couple questions. Could you explain the steps of like, how do you go from unlicensed deckhand? What are the next steps up to mate? How do you switch over from being unlicensed to then licensed?
When you're unlicensed, you're basically trying to earn your sea days. And a sea day, you accrue a sea day while you're on the vessel. You might work for ships for a couple years, but you need to get 360 sea days in order to be a licensed deckhand, which you actually have to test out for as well. So it took me a couple of years to accrue those sea days because you're on the vessel for, say, 3 months at a time, and then you're off for 3 months, or you're on the vessel for 6 weeks, off for a few weeks. It's different on every vessel, what that looks like. But it does take a little bit of time in order to accrue those 360 days. Once you do, you can test out, get your license, and then you can start driving like that, going from licensed deckhand, moving up. How I did it, like through the house pipe, was I would accrue more and more days, and then I would take supplemental courses whenever I was off the ship. Various things like a fast rescue boat. There's so many different little classes you can take, and all of those things are going to add to your credentials, which are going to make you look really good to other companies when they're hiring sailors. That's what that looks like for me.
I think it's just important for people to know, because I think maybe an idea to be like, okay, is there either like maritime academy or you stuck at unlicensed, to be like, no, you can become licensed. This is just one way to do it. It's a different way of bringing in education. You're bringing in education at a later date, but you're also getting all of your experience and practical knowledge right off the get-go, and then you're challenging it. It's a different structure. You're working your way up and you're getting all that practical knowledge. And then I love that you started supplementing it with additional skills and kind of practical courses. I think that's so beautiful. It gives you a well-rounded education in the maritime industry.
One thing that I want to add to that is that it does keep it exciting, right? Because when you go back to work and you're working your job, which you love already, and it's already like very exciting and dynamic, but then you're working towards something because you know that you're going to go on break and you have the course that you're going to take. And that course is going to open up more doors. So then you take that course, you get off the boat, you take the course, and you go back to the vessel, and now more doors, you have more opportunity to do other things on the boat that you couldn't do before, which is this ongoing thing, this progression that you just go up, and it's always something to look forward to. So it's really beautiful.
Gosh, it's such a dynamic industry. There's so much to learn. Just having that opportunity to branch out. And I know your role right before you're going to go into videographer, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, but as mate on the RV Pelican was your last vessel. I was wondering if you could speak to the roles of mate. What is the roles and responsibility of that label? What are your critical tasks that you have to perform? And then what are tasks as a maritime industry that you never thought in a million years that you'd be responsible for, that you caught yourself doing and you're like, what in the world?
So in regards to the question about times that how did I get here? Never thought that I would be doing this. Almost like every rotation that I've been on a ship, I've been like, there's been a situation where I'm like, how does this happen? I'm just a girl from Kentucky. And I am like above the Mariana Trench speedboat talking to these scientists who were like 36,000 feet down. What? Yeah, but there it is.
Frame.
Yeah. Every once in a while, you just have to catch yourself. Yep. This is my life. Can I
So
pinch
cool.
myself? This is what's going on. But some of the responsibilities on the Pelican, it's navigation, driving. A big one on the Pelican, because it's a research vessel, is driving the vessel while you are lowering while you're, it's driving the vessel while you're deploying and retrieving science equipment, which can be tricky because that ocean, you never know what she's going to do. That's a bit of a learning curve, because specifically the Pelican, and this is the first time that I come across this, they have the doghouse is where you operate equipment from our research vessels. Their doghouse was in the back, but you could change it to where you could drive the vessel from the back. So facing the back.
Yes.
So to
Yeah.
those at home who don't understand, imagine if you're driving your car and then you could all of a sudden go in the back seat and drive your car from looking out like the back of your car, looking out the back rear view. Everything's turned around. So that was a tricky one on the Pelican specifically. That was interesting.
Oh, totally. Most vessels can't do that. Most vessels cannot
Right.
be operated from two sides of the same coin. Being able to drive it from the back of your car, there's no way. Was it the weird learning curve of learning how to do that? Was there kind of something that's different with navigation on a scientific research vessel? How does that look?
With navigation on a research vessel versus, say, like a cargo ship or something, these scientists are trying to get something specific, right? Weather dictates, currents dictate if we can get to where they want to go at the time that they want to get there. So there's always meetings between mates and captains and the science crew of how are we going to get there. Sometimes like you have a plan to go to point A, B, C, D in that order, but you might have to change it and go, oh no, we're going to go C, D, then come back up to A, B and do it then because weather has changed since we made that original plan. You have to be really flexible in these environments. And that's with any job on the sea, really.
That is like definitely a standard of the maritime industry of working at sea is flexibility, but you never know what's going to happen. It's basically
absolutely
nonstop field work. Like you don't know where you're going to go. You don't know how weather's going to cooperate. You don't know what's going to break. But then the other part is also communication and being part of kind of the captain's crew and navigation and the control room. You also have to communicate with the entirety of the rest of the staff and the maritime crew. How big was your crew that you worked with?
That was one thing that was nice about the Pelican was that the crew was a smaller crew. It was almost interchangeable. I would also do like engine rounds and I think that's really important in any job that you work is knowing as much as you can about the whole company or the whole organization that you're working with from like the bottom up. That's why it was neat on that vessel to have that smaller crew so that everybody knew how the other jobs worked so that you could have that better communication and knowing what was possible and what wasn't, how we could make things possible if we were questioning them.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. That's really cool that you also did like engine rounds and that it was such a small crew.
That was the smallest vessel I'd ever been on. Very dynamic vessel, a lot going on, always changing and lots of different scientists coming on board, collecting different types of data. Plus, it was the first time that I'd worked in my own backyard because it was down in Louisiana. I'm used to being over in Japan or Norway or something like that. So you got to fly there. I remember talking to the guy on the phone and him saying, so if you want to bring your car, and I was like, bring my car.
Excuse me, that never happens in maritime. There's no way. You're used to like 2 days and you're like, I'm going to be stuck in Doha. And then I'm going to be like, that jet never fits. Never in my life.
Exactly.
That's
it was great.
Going into life at sea. One thing that we talked about already is like how dynamic, how flexible you got to be, how you have no idea whether it's going to be weather. It's going to be a complete mess. Having worked on ships, I know every single person who's ever worked in the maritime industry have multiple ship stories. And I was wondering if you could talk about a couple of yours, if you don't mind sharing, about maybe a favorite memory of a ship. And then maybe what's one that's like maybe a little bit scary, a little bit spooky, a least favorite one from working at sea.
I'm going to say my favorite. They both could be a little spooky, but that's just the life, right? Like things get a little dangerous out there, but that's okay. The first story begins while I was doing, once
upon a time.
Once upon a time in Southeast Alaska, we were repositioning the vessel. This is when I was working for Uncruise. We were repositioning the vessel from Alaska down to Baja, Mexico, because that boat, it summers in Alaska and winters in Baja. Oh, so glamorous. I know. It's like such a hard life. But so we're doing the repositioning, and before the repositioning, we have to put big metal plates over the windows and secure everything on the vessel because it gets really choppy out there. The weather gets bad and the conditions get very rough and the boat's teeter-tottering. So we were prepared. Everything was very secure. Now we come into some really bad weather, right? And I'm up in the wheelhouse with the captain who's driving at the time. It's tense. tense moment. And then all of a sudden we start hearing this dun dun
Oh
dun
no.
dun dun dun. And I thought, oh man, because it's coming from above us, which means it's up on the top deck. And
Yeah.
I'm the only deckhand that's going to go up there. So I know it's
Yeah,
going to
the
be
chain
me.
of command.
Yeah. Got to go check it out. Put your game face on. And I go up there, and on the top deck, because it was a cruise ship, there were chairs and exercise equipment and stuff that we had tied down. Whether it, the ocean, it had loosened a few things. So I had to go over there and like tighten that stuff up, and the rain's coming down, and I'm holding on to something's holding, my hand's holding on to something at all times. You got to have 3 points of
Yes,
contact. But I'm like,
100%.
yeah, safety first. So I'm out there, and it's just like this really, it's very, I don't even know like the words. As I'm tying this stuff down, it was like that moment. Have you seen the movie Forrest Gump, where he looks up at the weather and he's on the shrimp boat? He's like, yeah, God, give me your waters. It was like, that's what it felt like out there. That's what the weather felt like. So as I'm extracting this stuff down, I like have a moment where I look up, and I was looking at the sea and the rain coming down, and it was just like the clouds and the lightning. And I look over, and as I look over at the water, a humpback whale just breaches with its little fin.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it did. It was like,
That's
and it was
something
like,
out of a movie.
it was like 30 feet from the boat. I was like, are you kidding
That's
me?
insane.
Yeah.
That's crazy. It's one of those moments too, like, as soon as you see an animal, you can't tell anybody. Everyone's proof where it didn't happen. And you're like, it took 5 seconds, man. Like, it was there. But you feel like almost like you saw a mermaid, right? To be like,
Totally. It was magical.
have you
And
gone-
the other story that I have was, it was scary because we were, this is while I was at Uncruise, and we have 70 guests on board.
Wow.
And one of the guests was having a medical problem. And we
Oh,
weren't
no.
sure how severe this medical problem was, but we knew that we had to get this person off the boat as quickly as possible to seek medical attention. In this situation, it was like pressure was on, right? We got to get this
Yeah.
person out of here. And it happened all so fast, but it was beautiful to see my crew executing this task of, because it is something to behold, seeing people like taking a skip off of with a crane off of the top
Gratefully,
deck
yes,
onto
yeah.
the water. It was just so beautifully done, like a dance almost.
Yeah.
And then we got that person to the medical attention that they needed in the time. Everything worked out. And it was one of those moments, like, at the time it was scary, but I felt like I was on, I don't know, like one of those rescue shows. Everybody just like snap to action. And
We've been
it was
training for this our entire life, and then to actually see it. Yeah, exactly. We got this. We're like, have those like those rings, those 7 shorts. We're going right now. Yeah, definitely. Like, it's
But
time.
that was my scary too. Another like rewarding. I honestly feel like that's another theme with working at sea, where things, it may seem really like scary or hard in the beginning, but that's the stuff that becomes so rewarding when you break through to the other side.
I do think that there's also something that you brought up, and that like dynamic nature of
Yes.
kind of fuels you. That's what I love the most about it too. Yes, it could be a little bit scary. You're in the middle of nowhere. You have no idea what's going to happen. I was a smoker at the time when I was working at sea, so I'd be out on my little smoke break and seeing the oceans and seeing it like come basically as big as the ship. Part of you would be like, ow, but also part of you would be like, am I about to get driven out to sea? It's like it's my last smoke of my life. Like what's happening? Yeah, but there's a beauty in it of just like seeing this crazy amount of water, seeing what nature can do, like really experiencing nature at its kind of like rawest form, and experiencing a sea like that. No one else is going to be out there ratchet strapping and then seeing this kind of humpback whale, right? Like that. You can't make that. One thing that I think with maritime that has ever freaked me out, it hasn't been weather. Like I worked on an old boat that sounded like it would creak when you would sleep. Like me and my partner would be sleeping. I'd be like, we might die like the old people in Titanic, because it would be like, like it was like it was a tin ship.
Is that
right?
normal sound, or is that just the boat? I don't know. Or is that bad? Is that a warning sign? I don't know.
But that one really freaked me out. Like that, I got used to. What freaked me out was like medical, because you are so remote. I remember when I first got on ships, I was talking to an old sailor, and he was like, well, yeah, this boat's a little bit different, that we allow everybody to have their appendix and their wisdom teeth. And I was like, whoa, back up. Like in some maritime boats, they make you take out your appendix and take out your wisdom tooth. That's barbaric. You can't expect people to take that out. Fast forward a year later, we had almost 4 appendicitis, and they were so scary. Thankfully, everyone was okay. Everyone was fine. They got the medical attention they needed. The entire crew kicked into overdrive. I realized, I went to my doctor and I was like, take this ticky time bomb out of here, man.
I don't need it.
I
I
went like
mean
a
it.
full 180. Like at first to be like, you could never ask us to take this out. To then being like, please take all these out.
Volunteering.
Take my teeth,
Yeah.
take everything.
Yeah. Take it on.
Because
Yes.
it's very scary.
Another one that I want to talk on for people
Yes,
at home
please.
that I didn't realize, and I didn't even realize it until I got on board ships. Wasn't thinking about it, but fires, that's a big one. And so you need to have firefighters on board. I'm certified at firefighter training. That's part of it. And that was another one of those moments where on board, texting with my firefighter gear, and it's, how did I get here?
I won't say that I have the same level as you because you're actually maritime crew, whereas us, we just worked on ships, but we had to be comfortable with being a firefighter as well. And we had to
Yeah.
take that training. And I had the same moment of being like, oh my God, I'm like getting trained right now as a firefighter. How is
Yes.
this happening? But then I
Yes.
also would always go through the moments to be like, man, if the crew ever calls up on us to be the firefighter, I think everyone should just get to the lifeboats at that point.
Just skip this step. Let's evacuate now.
I was the lowest of the low of the firefighters, and I was like, "Please don't call me in, coach. I don't think I'm ready for this. I'm
Yeah.
not maritime
Yeah.
crew. I'm not staff crew.
Yeah.
Please don't call me up." I was wondering if you could speak to some of your vessels because you've had the
Yes.
privilege and the opportunity to work all around the world on so many different
Hmm.
cool boats, and one of them
Yeah.
is the DSS BP. Could you
Oh,
talk
yes.
about it? Could you talk
Oh,
about the
yes, I can.
Marianas Trench
I
and the
love to talk about
submersible?
this. Oh my gosh. Yes. This is one of my favorite vessels, the pressure drop. First off,
Mm.
I was the first and only female in the deck
Oh,
department
wow.
for a while on that boat. The crew on board, they were amazing. They were some of the most professional men that I've ever had the opportunity to work with. That boat, the pressure drop carries a submersible called the limiting factor. And the limiting factor is the only submersible of its kind. It's a 2-man submersible that has gone down to the Mariana Trench multiple times, not
That's
just once, but
insane.
multiple
Yeah.
times. The Philippine Trench. There's also a docuseries on, I believe it's Discovery Channel, where it shows the pressure drop going to 5 different locations, where it's the 5 deepest dives in the world. It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
extraordinary to see this, be a part of this operation, seeing the submersible getting lowered in at
Mhm.
36,000 feet down to get to the bottom.
It's
So,
mind-boggling deep.
right.
It's insane.
So another one of my moments of like, how did I get here? Was my role on that boat. I was communications. In addition to that submersible that we would lower in the water, we also lower a speedboat into the water. And I would be driving that speedboat. It would be myself and an engineer, and we would have a modem in the speedboat. And as the submersible is down on the seafloor, 36,000 feet down, we would be following it on the surface. And every once in a while, the submersible would stop, and we would stop, and we lower the modem into the water, and we could have communication with the submersible down at the seafloor. And that role, being in that role was such an honor. Seeing the whole operation, just being a part of it, it was so extraordinary. One of my favorite quotes was from one of the submersible team. I was like, I just can't believe we do this. And he goes, I know, it's wild, isn't it? When you can make the extraordinary ordinary, because we just do this every day now. Like, it's just our thing that we do. We're doing world records here. We're like breaking records left and right. It was amazing.
So beautiful. I think too, like, if people are listening, what should not be taken lightly is not only are you setting like records of being like deepest dives and going into the Mariana Trench multiple times, that you're the only submersible that's manned. Most of those submersibles that go that deep, they're not manned. They're completely just technology, just instruments. But this is a manned submersible.
Yes.
Also, remember, we know more about space than we do about the ocean. This is cutting edge science. First time seeing this and getting a full record and bringing all your instruments down. But what should also be not understated is it's not like Larkin's just putting down a modem and just like talking about coffee or talking shop. Exactly. Could you speak to what was the science that you were seeing? Were you able to see the very bottom? Was there live camera footage? Did you guys bring up samples? Is there something that stands out for the Marianas Trench that you're like, oh my goodness, what did that look like visually?
The creatures that were down there. I have a little YouTube channel, and I made some little YouTubes about the little creatures that are down there, the little crustaceans, the little jellies, just learning about these different creatures. And I think what was so rewarding for me was getting to talk to the scientists and going over the footage with the scientist right there. I had the opportunity to work with these scientists that deep sea is their specialty. And so it's not like you're just watching something on Discovery Channel or National Geographic. You're watching it with the scientist who's going to put it on those kinds of shows. You're seeing these discoveries happen in real time. And that was what was so rewarding was, oh, we just discovered the deepest jellyfish. You just never knew what you were going to see down there. There was cameras on board on the submersible, as well as we had two other the landers. Landers basically look like big metal boxes, but they have a bunch of equipment on the landers. We would also have bait trays and boxes and things on there that we would draw with this really oily like mackerel. Mackerel's big, smelly. That's a
Yeah.
smelly fish. These little
Oh,
creatures would like
so
come out of the
cool.
darkness and stuff and just start like eating. And then like you could see like a whole it was like where there was once nothing, all of a sudden there's this whole feeding little ecosystem
Yeah.
happening.
But also you
Yeah.
get to see the bottom of the ocean, which is
Yes.
so mind-boggling to see, to be part of a research expedition like that, to see the live camera. I love that you're saying like you were there before they even make it to the Discovery Channel. Like this is the footage that goes to the Discovery Channel. So
Yes.
it is this kind of like empowering moment. You're part of groundbreaking science. And I was wondering if you could speak to another vessel, because this has been your long-term goal that I'm so happy that you were able to achieve of working on scientific research vessels. Is your last one is working on RV Pelican. If you could kind of
Yes.
talk to that vessel, what its purpose is, what it does, and then what's been kind of something that's really been exciting that's come from working on the RV Pelican.
The wonderful thing about working on that vessel was just the extreme variety of scientists who were all working on so many different projects. Another thing that was really rewarding was because it was the Gulf, there was a lot of environmental
Mm,
research, things that we're trying to research. Like what is the impact of having all of these oil platforms and all these things here? And like, how is that affecting the sea life here? What can we do to make that better? So to be a part of all of that was really rewarding too, helping these scientists to collect the data they needed to get in order
mhm.
to make the Gulf better.
Very cool that you were able to work within the Gulf and a direct impact of how do we clean up the Gulf, because there has
Right.
been a lot of environmental negative impact and there's been
Hmm.
huge spills. It needs environmental reclamation. So to be able to be
Absolutely.
part of that's so beautiful, to be like joining the scientists. One thing you mentioned was the most rewarding, and it was just the amount of scientists and the amount of people that you were able to talk to. And I was wondering if we could talk to your next kind of exciting big thing of moving into
Yes.
science communication and your next upcoming cruise in Italy.
I'd be happy to talk about this. How this all started. And this is the beautiful thing about the maritime industry. You meet so many interesting people and end up in so many different environments on these vessels that you don't know where you might have a special talent that you didn't even realize you had
Mm.
that this maritime industry brings out in you. And all of a sudden you're doing what I'm doing and you're a science communicator. A few years ago, I was on the Kila Moana and I was following these scientists around. I was very intimidated by them at first because I looked at them like they were rock stars to me.
Mhm.
When I was younger, I always wanted to be a marine biologist.
Yeah.
But the truth is that I didn't think I was smart enough to do that. And after talking to these scientists, I found out that a lot of them felt the same way, but they
Yeah.
just pushed through.
Yeah.
A lot of people feel that way. So I kind of wanted to start sharing their stories and sharing what they were doing out there. So I started making videos for them. And after a couple of videos, I showed it to them and they're like, oh, wow, these are really good. How long have you been doing outreach? And I said, outreach? What is
I'm
outreach?
not doing outreach.
And so as they explain outreach, which to everybody
Yeah.
else out there, outreach is basically it's bridging the gap between the science world and the general public. But when he was explaining this to me, I said, you mean you can get paid to do that? Get paid? I'm just
Y'all
doing
get
this for fun.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And he was like, yeah. And he said, and in fact, we'd like to pay you.
Amazing.
Okay. Now I'm going to be going out with them. I have two expeditions with them coming up, one in Iceland and one in Alaska. I make these videos, started getting networking with more scientists, and then made a YouTube channel, TikTok, any social media that I could grab onto to get the scientists out there, to get this message, what's going on out here on the water, because I think it's really important work. And that's actually how I met a woman named Emily, and she suggested that I apply for this vessel. I applied for a position to be their videographer for a couple months on board. So for 2 months, February 2024, I will fly out to Italy, be on board for 2 months, and I will be filming and documenting what's happening on board in real time, which is beautiful. So
Wonderful.
I'm going to make 4 to 5 minute long videos. In addition to that, and this is the part that I'm really excited about, I will get to walk around twice a day around the vessel with a camera and a scientist. And talking into the camera is going to be a classroom of students.
You're sailing on the JR. You're going on the JR.
Yeah, yeah.
I love it.
And that's what I'm so excited about. That's why I picked up the camera in the first place, to show these scientists. I think that the science world gets like a bad rap. There's like this, people think that there's a stuffiness to it. But when you're out there in the field, that these people are adventurers.
Yeah.
These are your
Laid
Indiana
back.
Joneses.
Yeah,
And they're back.
They're not gonna be
Yeah.
stuffy. They're not scary.
No.
They're not The
Yes.
funny thing that perception in your brain kind of lies to you or being like, they're a little bit intimidating, or I have all this bias about like how they view me and how I view them. I think you're right that sometimes scientists get this stuffiness and you're like, no, it's really laid back. They're just normal people, man.
Really laid back.
And
Yes.
congrats on taking something that you love that comes naturally of talking to people and showcasing people, and then all of a sudden be
Yes.
able to make a career out of it. And it's so cool that you're going to be on the JR because that's my ship. That's like where I lived for like over 5 years.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. My world. I love it.
You're going to love the JR too, because I think we need people like you that are like so passionate about explaining science, I think, to a younger generation and to
Mhm.
classrooms and to talking to them, to
Yes.
showcasing science. But what you're going to freak out about is that it is this beautiful floating lab stack, basically. It's an entire ship that's like 4 floors of science and 4 floors of research. So not only are you going to be able to talk to scientists, but you actually get to be part of the lab. So you get to live within the
Oh my
lab.
god.
Speaking to like science communicator,
Mhm.
communication. I know that you're about to go on the JR, which is so beautiful. And that's going to be
Yes.
kind of your upcoming. What are your kind of next big projects? Like, what do you hope for the future of science communication? What do you think that
Yes.
we really need to pay attention on in terms of science communication? What do you think that we need to learn or understand?
I think we need to make it more fun and accessible for everybody. I want to use innovative concepts and interactive ways to explain this science. I want to get people involved and to draw them in, to get them excited. My vision for the future of science communication is that it does become something that people seek out. I would like it to be one of those things where we figure out some sort of a formula or something that is going to catch, that gets people's attention the way that reality TV does today. I would like to have that kind of audience, that large audience, to where it's, oh, did you see what happened last Wednesday on blah, 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 like
Yeah.
vessel? Or did
To
you
have
see what
that
happened?
excitement.
Yes.
Yeah.
In order to start generating that buzz, one of my goals, I would like to have a docu-series showcasing different women in STEM, showing what they're doing. That's
Beautiful.
recently, I thought that it was like a far out there dream. Like, I'm working on building my team currently, building the team, and I'm building the different scientists that I would like to talk to. That's what I want to do to start that conversation. Really, hey, look, these scientists are real people and they're cool people. They're people that you would actually get along with, and breaking down that wall of this is science up in this ivory tower
Yes.
and you're
Yeah, I
these
agree.
lowly people down here. We need to bring it down. We need to make science a party. Why not? Like,
Yeah.
let's launch everything. I don't care if
Yeah.
it grabs attention and it gets people on board, because all we need to do is get people interested.
Hooked.
Once they're interested and they start to see, once they open the door and say, oh, wait, this is actually cool, they're going to be hooked. Once you realize, oh, wait, this is accessible and I'm part of this, because we're all a part of science. Everything that I am involved in right now, this is science, is making people realize like everybody's already a scientist on some level.
Acting with it.
It's already part
Not
of your
too
life.
scary. It's not too above
Yes.
your head. It's not too
Yes.
highbrow. Let's bring it back down to reality. I couldn't agree more with humanizing it almost in a way, or
Absolutely
normalizing
humanizing.
it.
That's what I would like to do. Another thing that is on the forefront is I'm also starting to work with organizations, ships companies, to try to recruit more women to make this field more diverse. I'm trying to get more ladies out there to promote gender diversity and inclusivity into the maritime industry, because that's something that many times, being the only woman on board, having one mentor changed everything for me,
She
And
changed your
so
life.
there were many times, there was times where it was like lady captain, chief mate,
Amazing.
bosun,
Yeah.
deckhands, like the whole the whole deck department was all female. So I learned in that environment, which then gave me the confidence when I went to another vessel that I was the only lady. I know what I'm doing. Basically, like raised baby sailor. I wasn't raised in an environment where I was like always second guessing myself.
It was a
I was
progressive,
because of my
wonderful
gender.
environment.
Yeah.
It wasn't forefront of being prejudiced against because of your gender.
Right.
Unfortunately, I don't think that's the norm. It's wonderful that was your experience, but it'd be wonderful
Exactly.
to kind of dive into this funding and dive into
Yes.
recruitment to help
Yes.
general industry.
Exactly. That's the goal right now.
It's also so needed because it has such big impact. And it's always so funny where people become role models, maybe without even realizing it, to be like, okay, I
Mm.
just started doing this because it was something that I loved. You're now
Yeah.
probably that role model for someone out there that's watching your YouTube, whether you realize it or not. Like you're probably their female representation. And that's why it's so important, because you have no idea where it's going to go. You have no idea the impact
Right.
or like the cultural kind of relevance that it has within our industry. Such a beautiful thing. I love this next journey for you. I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming out, for taking time out of your day, for talking all this
Yes.
maritime, everything that you've been able to do. And I am so excited to see what next.
To newbie sailors out there, my first piece of advice for new sailors is ask questions, because the worst thing you can do is go into a situation acting like you know something and then not knowing it. Always ask questions, always volunteering for things. Because when you're the first female on these vessels, a lot of times the men on board aren't really sure what to do with you. Let's just say it. She's a sailor,
Yeah.
but I'm not really sure. Can I ask her to do this? Can she really lift this? 'Cause they don't know.
A little
Volunteer.
ridiculous.
But it is
I'm
true.
like,
I physically had to grab stuff out of people's hands and be like, look at me carrying this, showing
see
them
you.
what you can do by volunteering and putting yourself out there as much as you can, especially when you first join the vessel. Don't be a wallflower. Even if you don't know how to do something, even better if you don't know how to do it. Ask them to explain how to do that to you. Yes, I want to volunteer for that. No, I've never done it. Can you show me how to do it? Don't let you being the only woman on board psych you out. You have a seat at the table. You earned your seat at the table. Go take your seat and be a part of the team. My last piece of advice is to always offer a helping hand. Whenever you're on board, because it can get a little whirly out there, a little wild out there. If you're
Oh,
out
yeah,
for
totally.
45 days, it could be something as simple as just saying, hey, how are you doing today?
Having a
You
coffee
doing all
or
right?
something.
Checking
Like,
in,
just,
checking in with somebody and just like, how are you doing? It gets lonely out there. Checking in with your crewmates because you are a family when you're out there on the boats. There is no other work dynamic, I think, other than really being like an astronaut that can compare with what it is like for people
yeah.
out on a ship. There's nothing like it. There is no world like that. You don't understand it until you live it.
Oh,
So,
totally. I always view boats like the International Space Station of the sea. Like it really, it's
yeah,
so
it is.
isolated. It
Yes.
is so insular that you have no other community and you're completely by yourself, but you're also in such a remote condition that a lot of things can happen and can get very dangerous. You have to constantly MacGyver a situation and fix a situation, but you have to do it as a community with limited
Yes.
resources all together. And because of that, you're going
Yes.
to be a family. You might be a little bit
Yes.
dysfunctional. Like there might
Oh,
be an
always.
uncle.
Always.
There might be an uncle we don't talk about, or there might be a cousin that's annoying, or there might be
Yeah.
like some
Yeah.
weird dynamics. Like for
Yes.
sure, it's not like one big happy like la-di-da family. You're still out there. I think once you're in it, you fall in love with it. It's hard not to fall in love with working in the
It
maritime
is.
industry. I think too, yes, it might seem like you're the only woman in that industry. You're the only woman on your vessel. It's like Larkin is testament to it of the community that's online and the community that's available and the people that you might
Yes.
not know that has your back. It might feel a little bit hard, but there is a bunch of people that are being your cheerleader in Louisville, in Vancouver. We got your
Oh,
back.
gosh. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I guess I do want to touch on really quick, no matter where you are in life, you can change your life at
Yeah.
any age. Just grab a little bit of fearlessness because you only have one life. It's your life. So make it yours.
I think that's the perfect way to end it. And thank you for ending it. Larkin, this has been an absolute lovely experience. It has been an honor to have you on the show. Thank you so much. Can't wait to hear about your future. We are the Smoko Podcast. Tune in next Wednesday. Thank you for listening.